Hi, good afternoon. Hi. Thank you guys so much for coming out this afternoon. My name's Jenelle Riley. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this conversation with Jason Isaacs. This is one of those performers who sort of proves that, like, quite often the nastiest roles on screen are portrayed by the nicest people off screen. We've, of course, seen him in The Patriot, Brotherhood, Black Hawk Down, and this little series of indie films you should check out called Harry Potter. Of course, you can see him now on the Netflix's The OA, terrifying us once again. Please welcome Jason Isaacs.
I'm so glad there's someone here. I was so paranoid last night. It was just you and me on the stage.
Like that would be bad?
No, it would be marvelous, but I just, thank God. Thank you so much for turning out and not doing what you could have done instead.
And thank you so much for being here instead of doing what you could be doing, which is something ominous, I'm sure.
No, not ominous. I'm captaining the USS Discovery right now in Toronto.
Since you brought it up, tell us everything you can about the new Star Trek series.
So when I took the job in Star Trek, I had to sign these non-disclosure agreements, which were fatter than the script. Well, I mean, just giant, kind of waist-high. And as if that wasn't enough, there were signs all over the set saying no photography, no discussion of anything. And I know that anyway. And yet when I arrived this morning, I got another email saying you cannot say anything at all other than that you're in it. Even the things that are already public knowledge that the other people, including the head of CBS, has said. So feel free to ask any questions you like. There is a provision that they can take my children's eyes out with a blunt spoon if I answer them. But I'm doing Star Trek, and it's fucking cool, I have to say.
So blink once for yes. I am curious though, because there's a long lineage of great actors, especially stage actors, playing captains. Have you? You're British, obviously. Have you had any contact with Patrick Stewart about stepping into this world?
Yeah, he keeps leaving messages late at night. I ignore them. No, they're not that welcoming, frankly. The fraternity, they don't like there being another one in the club. They thought the doors were closed. But I haven't had any contact. I think I might have tweeted them, and one of them, somebody tweeted back. I can't remember.
Oh,
but
really?
I'm trying not to think about these gigantic boots that I'm stepping into, because they're all so fantastic. And I grew up on Shatner and Nimoy, and being on the set and saying energized and just thinking, I suddenly feel like I'm 6 years old, crammed between my parents and brothers on the sofa watching it, and it's the whole thing feels surreal to me. But and then I try and forget that, because if you think about Patrick or Shatner or any of the rest of them, you turn to jelly. So no.
I mean, everyone has a William Shatner story, though. Have you ever met him?
I have met him.
I figured. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a story to be repeated. Let me tell you. He's iconoclastic. Let's leave it at that, shall we? But for me, he's a captain. It's like everyone's got their favorite Bond.
Yeah.
He's for me the captain of a starship,
Really?
and nobody else comes close.
He used to live across the street from me, and I can say he was
He
a very
mentioned
good
that.
neighbor.
Yeah.
He probably told you to look out for me. So we are here with an audience of SAG actors. I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
On my knees. No, I think I got it on Dragonheart. And how did I get the part in Dragonheart? So much of the things that have happened to me in life have been incredibly lucky breaks. Nothing, frankly, is through talent. My phone book is full of my friends who are infinitely more talented, and many of them less lucky. But I'd just done Angels in America, which is the best play I've ever written or seen or been anywhere near, as an audience member. And I so happened I was in it in the first productions at the National Theatre. And the National Theatre had offered me some things afterwards. I can't remember, something called Uncle Vanya or something like that. And I just was doing a workshop with Ian McKellen and Jude Law and various people. And Ian McKellen's then boyfriend or ex-boyfriend was trying to see if Twelfth Night could be done with all boys. I don't know why it needs to be done with all boys, quite frankly. But anyway, that's what they were experimenting. And we had Janet McTeer, who's an amazing actress, and somebody else doing it. And we were in there doing these workshops all day. And I got a chance to audition. I was allowed to leave this thing for an audition, and it turned out that they'd cast Dragonheart, and the guy who was playing the part I eventually played had a better offer, he thought, in a film that was going to be a huge success. So he cut out of and he went to do Cutthroat Island, the pirate film, because he's smart and chose well. And but they needed to recast someone who had exactly the same size chest measurements and feet. because they'd made these costumes for him. So this call went out very, who's got a 35-inch chest and 9 1/4 toe or whatever. So I can remember very specific measurements, and there were very few of us in London at the time. So I went in, and it was less about can you act, it's like, do you fit these things? And I was offered the job, and I was sitting there one day during the workshop, kind of sitting in the canteen, looking very confused about what to do. And Ian McKellen went, "You're all right, darling, what's the matter?" And I said, "Well, I just got offered this second bad guy from the left in this Hollywood film, but shoots in Slovakia, and there's no money on them. But they've also offered me the cherry orchard, Uncle Vanya, or something good." And he went, "Can I give her some advice?" And I went, "Yes, yeah." He said, "Take the film. I am, theatrical royalty here. I've done every lead in the National Royal Shakespeare Company everywhere, and I can't afford to service my fucking mini. So." If I had my time again, I would play every fucking butler and every walk-on, every anything. Lords and manor with monocles, anything, because you can't work. Because Richard III hadn't come out yet, and I went, "Oh, thanks, mate." And I took this job in Dragonheart, and I went out there, and it's an American film, and I kept to come to the premiere, and then I got an agent, and this thing started. Anyway, when I arrived on the set, Rob Cohen was directing, and Rob Cohen, who went on to direct Fast and Furious, I think, and Triple X and stuff like that. And I said to him on the first day we were having dinner, and I said, I told him the story. I said, I just didn't know whether to do this film or not. And I told him McKellen. He said he would, he'd do anything like this. He went, "Is he available?" And I went, "No, I'm here." "Yeah, no, I'm just wondering." So that's a very long answer. I think that's how I got my SAG card. Can't remember.
Weirdly, Ian was doing the cherry orchard instead. Yeah. Was that your first time, though, in front of a camera? Because you'd done TV
I had
work.
Okay, so my wife used to make documentaries, and she sometimes we go to a party, and I go, "Found that guy with the moustache very interesting. You talked to him all night." She went, I asked him one question. People have an infinite capacity to think they're interesting when they're talking. But anyway, I could tell stories all day because you're sitting there and I'm here. I'm really sorry. If we meet at dinner, I will listen to you. But I had a huge break leaving drama school because I was an arse and had no idea how to conduct myself. And so I dropped into my agent's office. I got offered a job at a drama school in the theatre in Liverpool. And I come from Liverpool, and we'd left there and we'd come to London. And I did this play, and I had an uncle, a very embarrassing uncle who lived in Liverpool. God love him, he's dead now, Lenny. But he used to take his teeth out and drop his pants, do anything for a laugh. And just like very crude, embarrassing guy. I found excruciating when I was at that age. And I got the job, and he phoned me. He said, "That's great, you got a job at the Playhouse." He said, "I booked the front row. You're going to stay with me and your auntie, but you can't stay for the first week because we've got a lodger. But the woman next door is going to have you in her front room. She's put a bed there. Then you can stay with us." And we booked the front row for the first night. Got in touch with her old school. I'm like, oh, fuck. No. It's on my worst nightmare, all the things you want to escape from. So I went to my agent's office. I didn't know you don't drop into agents. I don't know, but she was a new agent. She'd been in the system before. And what I said to her, "Look, I can't do this job in Liverpool. You've got to get me out of it." And she went, "It's your first job ever. You've signed a contract." I said, "I can't go. You don't understand. I had a phone call from my uncle. I'm dying inside. It's the worst thing that could ever happen to me to go and do this. You've got to get me something else." She went, "You can't do it." And the phone rang. And she took the phone call, and it was a casting director who had already seen all of her clients, was casting this big TV series, and was on a second round because they hadn't cast it all. And it was on speakerphone. I could hear it. And she said, "Well, have you got anybody else? Because we can't, there's a couple of parts I haven't cast." And I went, and she went, well, and she went, "Hold on one second," put her on mute. She went, "Look, honestly, it's unprofessional." I went, "Honestly, I've never met a casting director. I'm not going to let me meet a casting director." She went, puts it back on. She goes, "Well, I've just taken on this young guy from Central Drama School, Jason Isaacs. He's very good, And she went, "Is he Scottish?" And I went, yeah. She went, "Yeah, I think he's got some Scottish lineage or something." And she got off the phone. She went, "What the fuck is that? All Scottish?" I said, "Well, I've been to the Edinburgh Festival 6 times. I'm pretty good at accents." And I went and I got this job. And it was a series called Capital City. It was a kind of series about dealers, commodity dealers and brokers and money brokers and stuff in the city. And I was in front of a camera for 2 years. It was the same crew that had shot Star Wars. At the time, there's no British film industry. They're all working in television. Shot on film. I had a kind of it was a big ensemble part. I had a small cast. I had a small part in it. But I learned to be comfortable in front of a camera and with these great cameramen and great directors for a couple of years. And that was a huge break. And just because my uncle was embarrassing.
I was going to say, how did your uncle recover?
I know, he right over his head. I'm sure he was dropping his pants at some other party, Yeah.
Did you go in like in a kilt or with a Scottish accent or?
No, I can do accents. It's one of the things I was always very uncomfortable in every situation growing up. I always felt like I missed the class at school where people had life explained to them. I mean, I could pass for looking okay and confident, but I always felt like other people, really were in their skin, and I wasn't quite. And one of the ways that manifests itself was that I just tried to become what I thought other people needed, socially and accent-wise. So we moved from London to Liverpool when I was 11, and I thought I had no accent for Liverpool because we were quite posh for Liverpool, but everybody was making fun of me in London, and I probably spoke like that, which is a very mild accent. I'd had elocution lessons in Liverpool. My father's car is a Jaguar. The rain in Spain falls on me. And I thought I spoke like the Queen, And I got to school, and everybody was taking the piss out of me, making fun of me. So I just instantly changed. I went to school one day talking like that. All right, Mum, I'm back at 4 o'clock. I've got rugby, and I came home. All right, Mum, listen, I'm going out skateboarding with my mates. And I spent my whole life adapting to whoever I was mixing with, and my accent being very malleable. And so I had been to Scotland a lot, doing plays at the Edinburgh Festival, and I learned to do a Scottish accent. And my kids still say, we're in the back of a taxi, they go, Dad, what are you doing? You're not Irish. I go, and I've no idea that I'm doing it. And it is tremendous social insecurity, I'm sure, but I managed to get paid for it. So I don't mind it that much. I mean, I'm English now with you here, but I'm on the set of Star Trek, and the set of everything else I do, I stay in the accent all day. Just because I find it easier. Otherwise, when they say action, you're suddenly thinking not just about the scene, but putting that mask on again. So I always stay in the accent of whatever I'm doing. And if I only speak to my wife and kids once a day for a few minutes, then that's 20 hours a day I'm in another accent. So sometimes I go home and I speak like this. It feels very uncomfortable for a day or two because I haven't spoken like this for a lot.
So it's an American accent in Star Trek?
I can't be telling you. But the OA was an American accent, and I stayed in it all day.
Yes. Speaking, I tried. Sorry. Speaking of the OA, since it's there in big letters behind you, I feel like I should mention it.
Oh shit.
How did this project find its way to you? Were you familiar with Britt and Zal's work?
I knew who they were. I hadn't seen the films. Which is weird. I've been to Sundance 7 times, I think, with 8 films. 2 of them came out. One of them lasted longer than a week. They're all great films, and you just never know when you're there. Sometimes it's festival fever, standing ovations and crazy, and you go, oh, my God, I'm in the thing that Boys Don't Cry, it's going to win an Oscar. And then they go, we couldn't sell it anywhere. And you go, not even Netflix, Amazon? They go, no, we're giving it away free with a copy of, Beano. But anyway, I've been there lots of times, so I knew who they were. I've been there the year when she was anointed the It Girl and stuff. And I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this story, but fuck it, it's done now. I'm starting. So I was at home, I'm a bit of an insomniac, and I got a phone call one night from my agents, and they go, okay, we're sending you 8 scripts, you've got to read them immediately. And it was like midnight, and I went, what? And they said, you've got to read the scripts right now. And I go, I'm going to bed. They went, don't, it's midnight, you're not going to bed, you never go to bed. You're always asking. But I go, I know, but I'm actually tired, because I binged a Netflix show last night. And I'm knackered, I didn't go to bed, and I've got to go to sleep. I'll read it tomorrow. They went, no, you've got to read it now. I go, well, what? And they went, it's a Netflix show. And I went, so? And they went, and you need to Skype the director at 2 o'clock in the morning. I went, what? Why? And they went, because if you like it, you've got to get on a plane. And I went, why? And they're firing someone, and they need to replace them immediately. And I went, oh, shit. So anyway, I read them. I thought they were amazing. I'd never read anything like them at all. I'd never seen anything like the imagination, on show. And I had no idea where it was going. I had all 8 scripts, which you never have for television. It was like a 8-hour movie. It's like a novel. And I thought it was fantastic. And I Skyped with Zal, and he seemed great. He's probably in a desperate panic to get somebody to step into a show. And then, I'm slightly condensing events. There were hundreds of phone calls back and forth. But basically, my kids came down for breakfast, and I had my bags packed. And I flew to America, had a costume fitting, and went to Grand Central Station and shot the first scene.
Wow.
And so, one of the best parts I've ever had in one of the most brilliant series I've ever been, I think it's amazing, happened because somebody else wasn't doing the thing they wanted in the way they wanted it. It's another piece of unbelievable good luck, because I'm sure they needed to find someone who fit their categories and was available that night.
Yeah.
Because, no, it's true. It's not, listen, I'm not putting myself down. I think I'm a good enough actor. I'm sure you're all brilliant actors. You need the right break at the right time with the right part. That's all you need. And I was, there's many other times I've been really unlucky. There's a thing that went on to be one of the most successful TV shows in the world, and it was written with a picture of me on the wall from the guy writing it, and it so happened the last minute I wasn't available in something which was a total flop, and so it went to someone else who's now a global superstar. That's the way that happened. But this thing happened because somebody else couldn't quite do it, and their agent had said they could do an accent they couldn't do, or whatever. And I don't know why they fired him. I'm thrilled they fired him. I hope I meet him. I will kiss him wetly on the lips when I meet him. But that's how I'm in it. And I mean, you know, when you read a script, you know, within 3 pages or a page, you go, these people not only know what they're doing, but they're not doing it like anybody else, in any way that anybody else does it. It was just magnificent.
Because you're not even in the first episode.
No.
So, I mean...
No, they said, it's this amazing part, and I went, it's not that good. You know, I found out like I'm not in the first episode. Here in the second episode, I was really going, I'm on page 40, and fuck all happening, you know. And then he comes in, and then I went, who the fuck? What is he doing? Why is he doing it? What's he doing? What does he want? And then when I watched it, who's not seen the end? Hands up if you've not seen the end of the OA.
What? What are you...
Jesus, you should leave the room because it's absolutely fantastic, and you won't see it coming. But I think, well, if you've seen that, you may know already that she is potentially an unreliable narrator, you know, and I try not to spoil things here, but they sent me a link to the show because I was doing press in England for it. They sent me a link, it was 9 o'clock at night. In fact, they sent it at 6, but they weren't geeky enough, and I was on the phone with the IT Uber geek, and it was 9 o'clock before we got the link working, and I had press the next morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I watched all 8 hours in one go. It was 5 in the morning and I finished. I was just mesmerized. And by the end, the last scene, you know, maybe it's because I'd stayed up all night and I was in that kind of weird cult place that you get where you drink the Kool-Aid. But I was laughing and crying and shaking, and I was kind of slightly hysterical with it at the end. And I wrote them this gushing email going, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But actually, on retrospect, I still think that that's true. And I can't remember why I was telling that story. What was the question? I've gone back into that state, that strange dissociative state with it. But literally, I can't remember the question. What was it?
I was just going to say, if you got it like 24 hours in it before you showed up on set, I mean, how did you prepare for the character?
So I know what I was going to say. Thank you. Thank God it came back. And only when I watched it did I think, fuck, maybe I'm not even real. Maybe I don't exist. Because it never occurred to me while I was shooting that these things didn't happen exactly like that. And when I watched it, of course, I hadn't been at the other scenes that I wasn't at and the other reality, and I went, maybe she made me up. I was upset, you know. Anyway, I think it's a magnificent show, and I lucked into it. You know?
Do you still think of that theory, or because look, I believe every word she said. I think you're.
Do you think that's exactly what happened to her?
Maybe not exactly, but
Because there are anomalies. I mean, There are people on the internet, they're very smart. There's a lot of people who pointed out some stuff maybe that the writers hadn't thought of, many things they had thought of. Britt and Zal are amazing people. They spent 2 years writing this. They really wove the fabric of it, and you can sense it. You know, there are many shows on television where they sell a pilot, and it gets picked up into a show, and they get a bunch of smart people in a room, and really what they've done is they present to an audience, they go, there's this amazing tapestry, a jigsaw puzzle, we're going to pull back bit by bit and you're going to see the whole thing. And they haven't got a fucking clue. They've got the 5 pieces of the jigsaw and they're pretending to you they've got the 500, but they haven't really. And if you follow the business, you'll know that once they fired 2 or 3 showrunners, clearly it was never a jigsaw to start with. Well, they have the whole story in their head, and it's why it holds together the 8 episodes. You can watch it over and over and see little interlocking references and themes echoing and stuff. But I went to see them yesterday in the writer's room. They're all so young. Britt and Zal are the oldest people in the room. They've got a bunch of people who are much younger than them, playwrights and just brilliant young people. And they said, do you want to know any of the stuff we come up with? And I went, yeah, I guess. 5 minutes in, I went, stop, my head hurts. I can't. Wait, so you're saying, wait, I need some drugs. I don't want, what? They're brilliant, and their imaginations know no limits. They're really fantastic. I can't wait to see. I mean, I was worried because the first season I loved. I mean, I get hyperbolic about things, but I really thought it was special, and I worried that they couldn't top it, but they're coming up with some amazing stuff for the second season, I think.
So you really had no time to prepare for this character, though? Did you just get thrown into it? Or?
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, he's a guy, I think he's a guy that thinks he's going to cure death. You know, a lot of people, I mean, weirdly, I get asked sometimes, and you're all actors, so you'll know that it's a nonsense question, like, how do you play evil so well? Well, you know, would you like playing good guys or bad guys? This is a guy, he's a scientist, and he's onto something. He's curing death. Mm-hmm. He's not wrong. I mean, there is this technology, and if somebody came up to you and said, I cured cancer, you wouldn't really want to know what they had to do to get there. You know, and there's statues all over London to Arthur Bomber Harris, who's the guy that said, we're only going to win the war if we flatten Dresden and kill everybody in it. You know, we don't ask questions. If somebody cures cancer and they had to lock a few people in the basement who really suffered for a few years, that's a terrible thing, but no one's ever going to have cancer again. No one's ever going to die again if this guy's right. So what's interesting about him is he's not a sadist. You know, and neither are people who experiment, by the way, on animals nowadays, or the people who work at the cosmetics company. He's not a sadist. He knows these are humans. He knows they're suffering. He understands there is a moral and ethical cost to that, but he's going to take it on anyway, because the potential at the end is not to say, the knowledge that he thinks he's going to unleash and the feeling of that is just too much to ignore. And then within that, he's human also. He kind of falls for the OA, he falls for Prairie, and, you know, he has jealousies and he has setbacks and stuff, but there's nothing about him that's generic. That's what I love in the writing. It's all, you know, it's nuanced, and there's no sadism in it. And when we came occasionally to a moment where, when they'd been writing it, there was a hint of that, I go, why would you do that? It's just to be cruel. And they went, you're right, I can lose it. You know.
He is humane, which is one of the reasons he knocks him unconscious, except for in the episode we
humane.
just watched.
He does what needs to be done, and he's had to inure himself to the fact that he's had to dehumanize them in order to deal with it. But that's what he has been doing. But then the OA comes into his life, and she's kind of special, and you know, something opens up in him that wasn't there before.
I'm curious because, as I mentioned in your filmography earlier, you've played your share of good guys. You've also played some very iconic villains. Is there ever any hesitation about taking on a role that people might perceive as a villain?
Yeah, if it's shit, that's like when I don't, literally, I just want to not be booed or have people think I'm rubbish. That's the first criteria. There are other things, you know, where is it? Can I be in my family? What are they paying? And all this stuff. But mostly it's, can I do this without being appalling? And the only way you can do it as an actor is if the script's any good, if the character seems believable. As soon as you do something that's unpleasant, just and the intention is the audience don't like you or boo or something, then you're lost. So the guy in The Patriot, for instance, is trying to win.
Sorry.
He's trying to win the war.
Yeah.
He's trying to win the war, and the worst things he does are quite enjoy his job. Well, there are people who do that. You know, dehumanizing the enemy in wartime is, you know, there are whole villages. You don't have to look too far to find mass rape in the Balkans in the 90s and other places. Killing your prisoners is a sensible thing to do if you don't want to have to, you know, if you want to travel light and fast. Sowing terror into your enemies by killing their family while they're away. These are all tried and tested techniques. And when we looked into it, it turns out that a lot of the people who were officers in the war in that time were second sons of aristocratic families. And the first son was going to get everything, and the second sons were going to get fuck all. But they'd been raised to expect giant estates and privilege. And so the only way they were going to ensure themselves the life they felt they deserved was by winning territory here. And in the new colonies, they would have this kind of this status. And so he's trying to win, and he's feeling insecure about it too. The other iconic villain, if you can call him such thing, in the Harry Potter films, he's a terrible loser. He's desperate.
Yeah. He's
desperate for status. He's a man who is a racist, a eugenicist. Again, look at the great industrial titans of America in the turn of the last century. There are plenty of those. And he's a man who thinks the time was better when the elite like him ruled the world, and believes in pure blood. I mean, you know, he's a politician. It's an easy comparison, but pretty obvious, because he's got ludicrous hair as well. And he never achieves it. He's so insecure that his wife, his son, Voldemort, they all think he's pathetic, and they smell the desperation on him. He gets his wand snapped at his table in front of his entire, you know, all of his peers, which is, I always thought of as castration, you know. So this is not, there's nothing cartoon-like about him. You don't look very far to find politicians, you know, on the stump saying the kinds of things he says all the time. So I try and take the parts that feel like I can play them and they seem real, and you're much more disturbed by characters that you recognize, particularly with Malfoy. We all recognize that slightly craven part of us that seeks status and attention and doesn't get it and then tries a bit harder. So, yeah, so my only hesitation is, will people ever employ me again? That's it, you know. And is it a repetition of something I've done before? You know?
Well, and is it hard to sometimes not take your work home with you? Like, were you fun to be around during the Patriots? Did you?
You've obviously not met my wife. That's that. You don't take shit like that home. You know, no, never. I've never taken anything home. The only thing I've taken home is the accent. So sometimes it's embarrassing that I'm at home and my kids go, "Dad, you're talking American." I forget that I've done that, or whatever the accent is, Irish or something. And one time I did a thing that nobody here will have seen. I think it's on Vimeo, called Scars, and it was there was a documentary maker. It was a brilliant, interesting project that I suggest you try sometime for yourself, just as an exercise. This documentary maker who had done a series of interviews with a very violent man, a man who spent his whole life steeped in violence, who became a violent criminal, and he said, "Can I talk to you about your life?" And the guy said, "No, because everyone had ever killed or hurt was because they had compromising information on him, so why would he talk to a filmmaker?" And the guy said, "Well, I'm not going to use anything you tell me. I'm going to create a drama based on it, you know." And he said, "You know, I know who you are and where you live and where your kids are." And he said, "Yeah." So he then started to do what he thought would be one interview with him. He did a series of 50 or 60 interviews with him over a year, and he had a nervous breakdown as a cause of this interview, all audio cassettes. And Leo went to Channel 4 in England, had written a drama based on it, and they went, "Yeah, don't like it much, but the interviews sound interesting." So he transcribed the interviews, took the names and dates out of the people that had killed or burnt or slashed or run over and stuff, and created this monologue. He gave it to me and said, "Do you want to, I want to recreate these in exactly the places we did them, wherever I recorded it, whatever he was drinking, whatever he was smoking, whether it was in a cafe, in a van, I want to make it exactly as if it's a documentary." And he gave me the monologue, and I said, "But where are your questions? Because the most interesting thing in this is your relationship, how seduced you got by these stories of extreme violence against women," and and he went, "Oh, all right," and he put his questions back in, and we shot that. So it's just me on camera for days, living with his, and we did it absolutely verbatim. Now, I'm someone who likes to tweak scripts a bit, and all scripts you ever do are slightly structured and schematic, but this is exactly what the guy said. He never said quite perfectly, but there was poetry in how inarticulate he was. And living with this guy's words all day, every day, about this incredibly violent upbringing and his father stabbing people and beating him and his brother up, and all the violence he saw, and then cutting his best friend's wife's face open, just non-stop all day, every day. I was incredibly dark, and I did take that home. It's the only thing I've ever taken home.
How did you shake it in the end, or is it just time?
I just had to stay away from my family. I had to stay with I felt like the world was such a terrible place. I wanted to either take them all away to live in a biodome somewhere, or I wanted to, kill them before they saw how ugly they were. I felt like everybody in every car. I've never beat my horn since, because this guy has put a bunch of people in hospital and even killed one person for cutting them up in traffic.
Wow.
There was one horrifying moment of it where he said, which in exchange we put back into it, because there was 60 hours of transcript, you could only do one, where at some point he's chronicling some other terrible thing he did to somebody in broad daylight. And the documentary maker, Leo, goes, "I don't understand." He goes, I've looked these things up that you're talking about, and I know they happened. I've seen them in the local papers and stuff. Like, how are you not in prison? How do you not spend your life behind bars that you can do these things? And he said, "Leo, you don't understand, mate. People like you, nice middle class people, you think you're saved by the police or restraining orders or like other people in the street." He goes, "I can do whatever the fuck I want, anywhere I want. Broad daylight, I've taken a carpet knife, I've cut someone's whole fucking face off them. You know what I mean? I've stabbed people, I've taken a coffee table in a crowded bar and fucking stuck it right in the corner of this off-duty cop's eye till his eye burst out of his..." And no one ever testifies. I don't have to scare them. They give a statement to the police and then they think better about it. Because nobody ever testifies against people like me, ever. You think if there aren't people all around you like me, I know millions of people like me who every day of their life do whatever they want to anyone with any weapon, and they'll never go to prison. It's like, you're reading things like that, you think you live in a safe world with law and order and stuff, but there are people who've learnt that if you're bold enough, no one will ever testify against you. It's kind of scary business. Anyway, that's that. I took that home for a while and felt I've got to get my kids out of the city. And it abates after a while.
Suddenly, Hap doesn't seem so bad.
No. Hap's not a bad guy. Listen, Hap's actually a nice guy. He's made the decision that this is worth doing. And he pays the price for it internally, morally. It's not like he's impervious to it.
Well, I feel a little bad for him because he is an outsider to this group. He has this unrequited love. And I'm kind of curious what the atmosphere on set was like, because you're doing terrible things to these people. But, was there levity?
Well, there was certainly something, they all had to practice the movements. And I didn't, so I felt slightly excluded by that. And they were all in that little greenhouse thing all the time. And they had a lot of scenes together I wasn't in, and you always feel slightly left out by that. But no, there wasn't any tension between us. I'm slightly older than them all as well, so there is that separates us. What was strange was, I went to have lunch with the writers yesterday, and it was fun. It was great. It was a lovely room and very light, because the basement's dark. We're literally in a dark place all the time, metaphorically and literally. But I realised I'd arrived on set, and Britt, although she's the genius behind it with Zal, she wasn't in character, but she stayed in the zone because she was playing Prairie, and it's very intense, all of it, for her, and she's blind for most of it. Is she? Sorry. Well, exactly. But I never really got to know her. And I've got to know her way better since we finished the show through interviews I've read that she's given, or watching her on YouTube, or watching her on like Jimmy Kimmel or something. Like, oh shit, she's really good fun. And yesterday I have to keep going, oh wait, she's not this very quiet, intense woman who's on the set. She's first of all, when we had questions about the story or script, I'd always go to Zal because she just didn't want to be that thing on the set. So no, it was a lovely atmosphere between all of us. We had a great time, but I never really got to know Brit, which is probably right. Sometimes you unconsciously create something flirty with someone you have to be in love with, or something slightly antipathetic with people you have to be at loggerheads with, and you both understand what it is, but you don't want to say it. You don't want to put it on the table.
Did you ever try the movements?
No. I mean, I watched them. It was way too hard. They really worked. You don't want to do it badly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You don't want to half do it. If you go on YouTube, you see a lot of people doing the movements. A lot of people.
Really?
Oh yeah, people have worked them. There's a couple of funny parodies as well, but there's like dance troupes doing them. There's a lot of friends who've worked them out. There's one very funny one where someone spills coffee on the floor and then they both start doing the movements and the coffee goes back in the cup. Blake Lively does them apparently in the mornings or something. Yeah. There's a whole movement thing online, but you don't want to do it badly. It's like when I meet people and they go, "Oh, can you do Lucy's Malfoy's voice?" And I go, I don't want to get it wrong. He lived inside that world, so no, I don't want to fuck it up.
So what ended up being the most difficult part of the shoot, either from a physical point of view or emotional?
It's choices. It's always when I was a young actor, I was very hot-headed, and I'd think. Acting a scene is excavation. Like there is a single truth to get to, and if other people couldn't see it, they were fucking stupid, and I had to argue. No, but this is the truth. And actually, after a while, you realise it's a blueprint, and you could play 20 versions of a truth in any scene. And because you're shooting out of order, and so you want to. Only when you watch the edit, you go, no, maybe I should have been a bit more this because it relates to that. So you try and have the whole things in your head, but it's always choices. There's nothing physically difficult. We shot in Havana, which was great. It was very hot, But really, the difficult thing was who to be and how to be, and what it meant to him. And the hardest thing is always I don't prepare. Right, I don't learn the lines, and I don't prepare. I feel like the preparation's been done on a subliminal level. I don't mean I take it casually. I get the sides until we put the camera down, and I want it to feel fresh. Because what I really want, the greatest acting lesson I ever learned from the director who directed Angels, was that it's never about you. Like, when you see people act sometimes young, when I occasionally go to drama schools, I just remind them, this isn't the bit where you get upset. This isn't the bit where you're going with. It's the bit where you're trying to make the other person apologize. It's the bit where you're trying to make the other person scared. So what do I want from the other person always? It's so working out what response he wants from the other person, or maybe he doesn't want. Maybe he wants them to be quiet. So it's always just making the choices about what's not seen and not said that's hard. Apart from that, the hardest thing is being away from my family. So,
They couldn't come to Havana, or?
No, they couldn't come at all. I mean, it's a schizophrenic life as an actor, and it's a horrible thing to pack your bags and leave all the time. But sometimes for work, it's best to be in that bubble. I was in the hat bubble. But to arrive on set and have the person directing and the lead actor, be the people who created it meant that you had that freedom you never get in ordinary television things. This isn't. I think if it's an 8-hour movie, where you can go, what about this? I don't know about this, and they go, yeah, and it changes and evolves. It's genuinely organically alive. And they did this extraordinary thing because they wrote it all over 2 years, and yet they made, not just me, I watched them do it with the young actors as well, even people who never acted before. They went, well, you know the part better than me. You know the character better than me. What do you think you'd do? What do you think they'd say? What do you feel about this moment? They didn't really have to give you a seat at the table in those kinds of discussions at all, but they did constantly, and empowered people to kind of take ownership of moments, and they were really genuinely open. It wasn't a manipulative thing. They go, oh, they would not feign. They would genuinely go, I never thought about that, or that's more interesting than what we came up with. It's a very generous, very creative, very open way of approaching storytelling. And it spoils you, I have to say. It spoils you for other stuff, because you don't normally get that.
You've mentioned Angels in America, and I'm curious, because you've that I just think has to be one of the most difficult roles ever. But you've done stage and screen and TV. Do you have a medium that you prefer?
No, variety. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again forever. So I'm thrilled that almost every television show I've been in has been cancelled. But no, just like changing things around. The difficulty for me with Angels in America is it was such a high watermark. It's such a brilliant piece, and it was done. Now they just revived it in England, and Andrew Garfield's doing it, but it's a period piece now, and nobody in the West is scared of dying of AIDS, for instance. And although there are political echoes because Trump's in, at the time we were talking about demonic figures who were in power and making these pronouncements about AIDS and stuff. So it felt incredibly vital and real, and it was the funniest, saddest, most interesting, most provocative thing I'd ever come across. And it started, you could feel how much it changed and provoked the audience. In fact, there's one very famous actress in England who will kill me if I say her name, but she became an actress because she went to see it every day she stood every day for returns. And it was a really magnificent experience for everyone who saw it. So although I've done a couple of plays since, it's very hard to get back on the stage. And I've been in things that were successful as well since then, but they feel like nothing. They feel like that feels like what it's really about, to be a storyteller in the world. It feels like, it's not about you or reviews, or it's about, this is the reason we're in the storytelling business is make people think and make people help or provoke people into making different choices in their life. And it did all those things. And everything since then has been, reviews and applause and signing things at the stage door and just things that feel so trivial. So I've barely been on stage since.
Wow. You might have just answered this question, but I was going to ask, what's been your most difficult role for whatever reason?
The thing is, you said Angels of America is difficult. It's not. Great scripts are easy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're challenging, they're fun. It's like, a hard workout that you're covered in sweat. It's hard, but great scripts are fantastic and easy. They're like riding a great wave. It's exactly what you think or hope would happen. You're three-dimensional. You can build the 99% of the character that doesn't appear on the screen. Inside, you can imagine the inner life really easily. It's the really shitty scripts that are hard work. How do I say this or do this without, I signed up for it and it's great because it's in this place and I get this money or it's sunny but now they've just said action and I have no fucking clue what to do to make this moment even vaguely believable. That's what's hard, the rest of it. But good scripts are easy,
I want to take some questions from the audience, and I apologize in advance if I butcher anyone's name. Oh, Maria.
I'll get Maria wrong, surely. Unless it's Maria or something. Look. Hi.
What advice do you have for an up-and-coming actor to be successful at making a living doing a profession she loves dearly?
As I told you, I've been so lucky, amazingly lucky. But I would say this, when I came out of drama school, if you wanted to in any way take the reins of your own career and not wait for a phone call, you had to have very rich parents. You had to, if you wanted to make a short film, you had to get a camera, which was a fortune that came with a camera operator. And you had to go and beg for short ends of film stock. And then you had to get an editor with an avid on sound people. And then you would go to places, foundations to get grants to make a print. And now, that's a studio. That's a film studio with green screen and scoring and distribution and revenue sources. And oh look, I'll take some. Anyway,
I was going to say, you got some tweets there. I'm interested in.
And the thing is, I know it feels like there is this circle somewhere else where all these people making a living have a great time. Well, believe me, inside that shark pool, everybody's panicking and insecure and stuff. And the people I know who are a couple of people I know who are, sitting right at the top of the totem pole, to the people who are at the bottom and scraping a living and having to, do a million jobs, the most satisfaction any of them get, wherever they are on the totem pole, is from making their own stuff. So my advice would be, fuck knows how you're going to make a living. Good luck with all of that stuff. But I know how you can feel satisfied, which is make stuff. Make stuff. It doesn't matter whether it's a play or a sketch or a short film. You can make the same short film 100 times over until you get it cut right. You've no idea where your skill set lies. There's no reason not to be a complete hyphenate, to be an actress, writer, director, editor, scorer. You all these things, and it's free to practice. And it's amazing that it's and Hollywood is full of people who are looking around for someone else who's talented. So you got more likely to get attention by doing your own stuff. This Brit story. I don't know if you know Brit story. So some people might not know. Brit went to study economics at, I can't remember where, some great university, and she shared with two film students. And she got a place at Goldman Sachs coming out, and her parents were very proud. And she was, she was set on this path. She was a super smart girl. She said to her parents, I think I'd like to go to Hollywood and become an actress, which is all any parent wants to hear from their daughter ever, And she came and she wasn't being very successful. She was getting, second girl on the left in horror films to get your boobs out, And she and her still flatmates went and got screenwriting books, and they taught themselves to screenwrite. They literally went to the library, and they went to, and they wrote these low-budget screenplays. They didn't know anybody. They were completely outside. They scraped together money to make these 2 micro-budget films, and they got into Sundance with both films in the same year. And she went from Who the Hell's Brit Marling to The It Girl, now not everybody has that meteoric rise, but the point is, do your stuff. It's free. When you don't have a mortgage and kids and private school fees and all the shit that cripples me every day, you're free to dream and create, and whether or not you end up getting paid for it, it's the most satisfying thing you'll ever do. So that's my crappy advice. It's all I've got for you. Sorry.
Speaking of those movies, The Sound of My Voice, one of the first movies she made, it feels like it's in the same universe as the OA. So you have seen it since.
No, the thing about Netflix is they took these indie filmmakers who made these films on spiritual themes and identity themes and unreliable narrators and stuff, and they went, and they'd written the scripts, don't get me wrong, and they went, sure, you can do that on a gigantic playing field and we'll give you a huge amount of money to make it. And sure enough, that quality and that taste and that subtlety translates, and it's had a massive audience. They don't give you the figures, Netflix, so it's anecdotal, it's not scientific, but everywhere I've been in the world, people stop me all the time. In countries where they don't speak English, you forget it's Netflix, so it's on everywhere. People come up in foreign countries, they go, "Ao?" And I go, I'm so sorry, I don't speak, Bulgarian. They go, "Ao," and I go, "Oh, eh?" And they go, "Hop," and I go, everywhere, So, it just shows, it's like, one of my favorite shows, I'm sure everybody's favorite show in this room, we share the similar taste, if you remember, SAG, is The West Wing. And The West Wing came along and gave the lie to the notion that the American public needs to be force-fed mindless nonsense, because it's brilliant and it's about the most important themes of our day, as evinced through characters with dramatic journeys. But nonetheless, you never underestimate the American public's capacity to, to consume something of great quality if you do it right.
I'm a little surprised to hear people are so happy to meet Hap. I think they'd be like, "OA," and running away.
People love that. Listen, if you spend the entire day and everybody opens doors for you and says thank you very much, and one person steps on your toe and pokes you in the eye, that's the person you think about when you get home at night. So people like to meet the antagonist and things. And also they're confused by him because he's somehow only slightly sympathetic.
No, he is. He is. But that's my own therapy. We have a question from Matt B. Way back there. Wants to know, can you recall your favorite Harry Potter shoot day?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, of course I can. Well, first of all, there were many, many of them. But there was a day that this is like a 5-hour story if I wanted it to be, because I remember everything about it. And by the way, I barely remember any other day over the 10 years, other than my first full day. And I'd done a second unit day watching a game of Quidditch where someone had a tennis ball on a stick. And they went, and this is the blodger, and now there's, and I hadn't read any of it, I was like, what the, but, and now Harry's on the floor, he's got the sniffs. I remember turning to Alan going, well, I'm happy about that, what? And he goes, I don't have a fucking clue. He said, I'm just doing nothing. And Miriam Margolis was there, farting all the time. Did you hear that? And I was like, oh my God, what is that? But my first proper day was the end of the Chamber of Secrets. The film, they shoot the thing completely out of order, and it's the end of it where I'm with Dumbledore and he kind of tells me off for having put the diary in. I apologise people who haven't watched Harry Potter, but anyway, it's the unravelling of the story at the end where I get caught as being the main antagonist and told off and slapped and sent out of the room. And it was Richard Harris who was Dumbledore. And Richard Harris, I'd gone to drama school with Jared, his son, and I was a little bit scared of Richard because he's a genius and, iconic actor. So I'd gone straight in with, hello Richard, I'm a friend of Jared, he's amazing. He was the best actor in our year at drama school. You're amazing too, but he's really amazing. Well, but the whole family is just amazing. And I said, and I'd slightly ingratiated myself to him. So he was telling me these hilarious and utterly filthy anecdotes about the 60s. Although he was drunk for all the 60s, he has perfect recall of some of the most disgusting episodes of his life. So he's telling me stories. I think, I'm in. Richard Harris is my mate. He's sharing filthy stories with me. And they go, can we step up and do the scene? And not only are we shooting the last scene on my first day, we're shooting the last bit of the last scene as the first take, which is where his line is, thank you, Lucius, that'll be all, and I have to swoosh out of the room, right? So I stand there and they go, and they've just like 3 cameras on us. Daniel's there, Richard and me, and I've got my wig and my thing, my cane and stuff, and Richard's got the line, and they go, roll all the cameras, and they go, action. And Richard just looks at me. I look at him and I think, taking a big pause here, what about, maybe you can see someone moving behind me, And he looks at me and he narrows his eyes, and I think he's forgotten his line. He's 80 or something. I don't think he knows it's his line. Someone bet I don't want to be the arse that goes, Richard, that's your line, like on camera, so the director's going to say, Richard, in a minute, and he just looks at me and I think, fuck, maybe it's my line. Oh no. Fuck, it's my first day, it's my first take. And I didn't look at the sides. I was distracted by his stories about Marilyn Monroe, whatever it is. And I was, shit. It's my line. What is it? Someone better come in. What did I say in a minute? Line? And I start to sweat. My eyes go. And then he goes, thank you, Lucius. That'll be all. And I thought, oh, you bastard. Again, you're not my friend. Not on camera, Mustn't. And I turn around, I switch out the room, and Chris Columbus goes, cut! Okay, it's great, we got that. Hold on, you know what, let's do another one. Jason, you want it when you go out the door, you want to shut the door behind you? And I said, yeah. Or can I just like swish my hand and it closes by magic? And he goes, yeah, sure. And I went, you're kidding me. What? So I go, oh, thanks, so we're doing that one, and I switch out the thing, and then I said, oh, guys, sorry, I'm so sorry, where's Dobby? I've got to look where Dobby is, because Dobby's in the scene. Right. I remember he's in the scene. I look at the script, it says in the script, Dobby follows him into the corridor, and then I have this stuff that goes on them. And they go, well, where do you want Dobby to be? And I go, what do you mean? And they go, well, wherever you look, that's where we'll put him. And I go, like there, next to me. And they go, yeah. All right, that's weird. I thought it was something more exact than more precise than that. But okay, fine, I'll just look there, I suppose. And so we did again, and he goes, thank you, Lucius, that'll be all. And I turn, and I go down I turn, actually, and that, and I go out of the room, and Chris Columbus goes, cut, sorry, can we wipe the floor where Jason is? And I go, what? He goes, did you slip on the thing? I said, no. I kicked Dobby down the stairs. And he looked over, because there's always a special effects person with a clipboard on the set. He looks over and he goes, and the guy goes, so, and then he goes, well, what was the thing with the cane? When he went, I said, well, when he tried to get up, I hit him on the head. And he goes, looks at the guy, goes, so we do that, and I did a thing like that, and then he goes, I think we got it. I go, wait, sorry, can I do one more? And he goes, okay, sure. What do you want? You want to do something? And I said, yeah, can I have a word with you? I said, I feel like, now, remember, Harry Potter is a sacred text. It's like, but people came to the set, they knew every punctuation mark. So I don't know if this is pushing it on my first day. I went, I feel like he'd say something. Just what, he's such a proud, elitist, arrogant, entitled prick of a man. He wouldn't be stripped down in front of Potter without saying something on his way out. It's kind of face-saving thing. He said, well, what do you want to say? I went, I don't know, something. And he goes, well, try something. I tell Daniel. And he goes, no, just do it. So we get to the thing, and Richard looks at me and he goes, thank you, Lucy, that'll be all. And I turned to little Daniel, who was like 12, and I turned and I went, let us hope Mr. Potter will always be around to save the day. And he puffed his little chest out and he took a step towards me and he went, don't worry, I will be. And I turned, I walked out and I thought, fuck, he's good, isn't he? he's 12. I wasn't expecting anything to come back at me like that, And that was, I remember my first day, so I remember every incident. I remember going, talking to one of the set dressers going, that thing, that bird behind Richard is amazing. They go, yeah. I go, what is it? They go, it's a phoenix, it's a falcon. And I go, where did they get it from? And he went, what? I go, where did they get the phoenix from? And they went, it's a robot. It's a phoenix. And I went, oh yeah, no, sorry. No. Just everything about the whole day. And it's weird because I tell that story, I go to like Comic-Con conventions and stuff for that, and Peter Pan and Event Horizon, whatever all the fancy things I've been in, and they want you to tell a story, and I tell that story, but I've told it a few times because I remember it so well, and it's occurred to me over the course of the last year or two that I don't actually remember any other day at all in any detail, but that day is seared into my imagination.
And what a day. Right. Well, I want to remind everyone that the OA is streaming on Netflix. If you haven't finished it, come on. It's been a couple months. Yes, finish it. Finish it. Can't wait to see what you do next. And when you can tell us about it, please come back.
I've got actually pictures. If you want to, I can airdrop them all to you. If you'd like to see my children blind and wandering the street begging, so I can do.
CBS is like standing in the back with the. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being such a great audience.
No, thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.